Been a good minute. Not a super long time, but yeah, it's been a good bit. Probably like 2 weeks, I'd guess. But I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten. I want to try to go back and just stay continuous with Umineko being on Thursdays. So here's the thing. Getting back to that. I think I remember correctly. Eva is like starting to slowly realize Hideyoshi's gone now. Or like she woke up from like her sick nap. And Eva Beatrice is like trying to keep on that like evil kind of sick front, but she got kind of like stun locked by Hideyoshi. Also, still remembering that guy got away with like a free slap on the new Endless Switch. And I mean he's dead now, but he got away with it in that moment. He got away with it in that moment, and I still kind of flabbergasted about that. But it's time to see how things will continue going forward. Are we? Oh, that's right. We met the two military demons. I forget their names already. But they had like a heat-seeking bow. Okay. Okay, it's slowly coming back to me now. 30 minutes had already passed since Rudolph's group had left the guest house. By any measure, their return was too late. Crowds Natsui, who waited by the entrance, were reaching the limits of their patience. The chain was set on the door. That was a precaution in the event that Rudolph's group was attacked and Master Key was stolen from them. For that reason, they needed to wait by the entrance like this for the others to return.
さすがに遅すぎます。彼らの身に何かあったのでは。
Kraus glanced between his watch and the door, struggling to keep his composure.
もし彼らが戻らないようなことがあるならば。
辛い想像だが、その覚悟を始めた方が良さそうだ。やはり不用心だったんだ。
私はそうだと申し上げました。なぜ彼らはこれほどの危険を承知で外に。愚かなことです。ローザさんが襲われたばかりだというのに、なぜに外へ。
それを言っても始まらん。とにかくこれでゲストハウスに大人は3人。私と夏日、そして高熱で寝込んでいるエヴァだけだ。
Well, was. At that time, the forceful sound of a door being opened came from the hallway, and they heard Eva's panicked voice. Hey, as if on cue. That voice kept calling out Hideyoshi's name. It seemed as though she had a bad dream or something due to her fever, and was calling for her husband.
エヴァさん、どうしましたか？大丈夫ですか？うちの人はどこ？うちの人がいないの。
feel bad because she's already sad and in this like terrible state. And then to find out on top of it that he's no longer with us is just gonna like destroy her. She's not ready. Cross was struck dumb by this attitude at first, which he had never shown in front of him before. But not so understood her feelings.
落ち着いて。秀吉さんはルドルフさんたちと一緒に今表へ出ています。表へ？どうしてよ。私とずっと一緒にいてくれるって約束したのに。どうして表になんか行ってるの？表へ出てはダメ。表には魔女がいるわ。行ってはダメ。殺されてしまう。
エヴァ、落ち着きなさい。秀吉さんはルドルフたちと一緒に屋敷へ戻っているのだ。
どうして屋敷に行かなくちゃいけないのよ。ここなら安全なのに、どうして表になんか出したのよ。どうして屋敷なんかに戻ったのよ。
明日までの食料を取りに行くことになったのだ。秀吉さんはお前の体調が悪いことを気にしてて、そのためにもと言って。
いつ戻ってくるの？いつ戻ってくるのよ。表はダメよ。バラ庭園はダメ。屋敷はダメ。魔女がいる。黄金の魔女が歩き回ってる。見つかったら殺されてしまう。絶対に殺されてしまう。ああ、うちの人はいつ戻ってくるの。30分前にここを出ました。私たちは帰りを待っています。
うん
30分？そんなのおかしいじゃない。屋敷に行って食料を取って帰ってくるのに、どうしてそんなに時間がかかるのよ。
You might wonder why.
それであんたたちはなんでここでぼんやりしてるのよ。迎えに行かなきゃ。早くあの人のところへ行かなきゃ。
Eva probably had quite a nightmare. And because it had continued even after she woke up, she could no longer hide her panic. Natalie tried calming her down, but all it did was make Eva's emotions explode even more. Maybe they heard that disturbance. Badler and the kids, who had supposedly been on the second floor, were peeking their faces through the crack of the lobby door. Kraus, Natsui, Eva, and Badler, George, Jessica, and Nanja. Oh yeah, Nanja's alive. Everyone in the guest house had gathered by the entrance and understood the current situation.
母さんの意見に同感だよ。父さんたちの様子を確かめに行くべきだ。
But it's not your time yet. It's too early.
まあ、そうだな。荷物が大きくなって手間取ってる可能性だってあるぜ。人手は歓迎のはずさ。
ローザさんが襲われてすぐですぞ。二次遭難の可能性もあります。ここは一つ慎重に。
バカを言わないで。慎重に何よ。助けを求めてるかもしれない主人を見殺しにしろというの。
I mean, it's a tough situation.
私が様子を見に行くわ。臆病者はここで待っていなさい。
Oh, that's a terrible idea. Looking agitated, Ava raised her gun. Judging by her face, it would be useless for anyone to try and stop her. George, who realized that first, raised his head.
僕も行こう。バトラ君も来るだろう。人数が多い方がいい。
おう。エヴァおばさん、来るなって言ったってついてくぜ。
私も行くよ。
Goody, a fun little light party rescue.
私だけ安全なところに隠れてなんかいられないぜ。ジェシカは出てはなりません。ここに私といるのです。良いですね。
It was like they were implying that those three had already been killed anyway, so going outside would be pointless. Natsui realized that Ava felt like her heart had been gouged out, but she spoke out strongly as Jessica's mother.
そうね。それがいいでしょうね。兄さんたち一家はゲストハウスで留守番してて。これはうちの家族とバトラ君の家族の問題よ。あと南條先生も来てもらえるかしら。万が一のこともあるかもしれないから。
And just what? Confirm the dead?
Ew. バトラ、エヴァ、ジョージ、南條の4人は屋敷のホールにて。
That's new. Wait, who's in the lab? That doesn't look like Kyrie's body. I guess it could be.
ルドルフ、キリエ、秀吉の3人の遺体を発見。
Mentioned Battle Eva, George, Nadja on the corpses of Valkyrie. So sad. Altered updated. That's right, the shysters. $4.10 and what was it, 4 or 5? 45. Yeah, I remember these two. Died in the Hall of Mansions, chest pierced by a stake-shaped weapon. That was careless of me. Didn't think you were still alive. Oh yeah, and the demons had to go in there post-death too. That's right, and they didn't like that. The stakes. Hall of Mansions with his forehead pierced by a weapon. Gouge the head, goes the forehead. Goes the chest. Apparently they finished off with stakes from here on out. Gross. Kyrie. And stomach pierce. The stomach isn't a particularly lethal spot, but it isn't enough just to kill and earn some other easier way to stick a stake in a corpse. So be it.
第4から第6の番ってことか。
Yeah.
なら死体には、額、胸、腹にそれぞれ、例の悪魔の杭が。
はい。ルドルフの額に1本。秀吉の胸に1本。そしてキリエの腹部に1本、悪魔の杭が打ち込まれています。3人には争ったか、あるいは逃げ回るかしたと思われる着衣の乱れがあります。3人の遺体は寄り添ってはおらず、犯人と遭遇後、ある程度の抵抗を試みたと推定されます。
杭で、額と胸と腹を、とか。相変わらず、無芸。
Even though Ronald knew it would be superfluous, he contemplated telling Battler the truth. Normally, the witch would have killed them in a much, much more horrible way. Corpses have been left in this manner only because Beato has suggested to the witch that she shows restraint. The new witch, thinking it would fit well enough as long as she gouged with the stakes, probably have just stuck a stake into a lump of meat that wasn't even shaped like a human. Rosa's and Maria's corpses were a particularly striking example. If they had been killed, as the Golden Witch had wished, just how gruesome would the corpses have been? Beato had changed that into the still better kind of killing Battler had mentioned earlier. Wanting to have Beato's small bit of thoughtfulness appreciated, he thought of telling Battler about this. But judging by Battler's eyes, that might do more harm than good. To humans, the gap between being alive and being dead is very large. Like you are or you aren't. Saying that she'd given them better deaths might have made it possible for a demon to understand her feelings and pardon her. But there was no way a human would ever be so accepting. Understanding this, Rono remained silent despite knowing of Beato's modest efforts.
いつも通り、死体の死亡確認からさせてもらうぜ。ロノウェ、赤で宣言を頼む。おい、聞こえないのか？赤で宣言を頼む。復唱要求だ。ルドルフ、キリエ、秀吉の3名は死亡している。
申し訳ございません。復唱を拒否させていただきます。
なんだと？いきなりどういうつもりだ
？By now, proclaiming that the victims were dead in red was almost a given in this battle. Refusing to do that was almost like losing by default. Welcome in, Denvers. Oh, I thought you'd be streaming by now. But hey, good to see you. You've been doing well. So when Ronov refused as part of his first move, Battler was dumbfounded.
申し訳ございません。私めのお嬢様の代行者である資格をこれをもって返上させていただきます。
So he can't declare it in red, and he's gonna step back. Wait, really?
よって私にはそれを赤で復唱することができません。
Where is he gonna get his truth from?
それを復唱する資格があるのはお嬢様ただ一人だけでございます。
正しい言い分です。ロノウェはベアト側の代行者でしかありません。ロノウェが代行の役を負り、かつバトラ君がベアトを相手として認めないならば、新しい代行者を立てる必要があります。
新しき代行者はおりません。どうかバトラ様。
Go right to the source.
お嬢様を再び対局の相手とお認めください。
悪いが。
Bill?
そいつは聞けねえ相談だぜ。あの不愉快な残酷野郎。俺は絶対に対局者だなどと認めない。
if she has actually like formally apologized for that. I don't think she has, but I can't remember.
それを認めないために、俺はこのゲームを降りないんだ。
不愉快な点につきましては、お嬢様に代わりまして謝罪します。また、お嬢様には二度と不愉快な言動を取らぬよう制約させます。
どうだかな。
バトラ君、あの子の師匠として私も謝罪します。
If there's two people's words or anybody's words that I would like trust and actually take with a grain of salt around here, it would be these two. I mean, just give them a shot, especially if it's coming from these two. They're apologizing for someone else that they're attached to, like their mistake. They weren't even the ones that did anything, you know? Like, they're just apologizing on their behalf. It's gotta mean something.
よく言って聞かせますので、どうか一度だけ許してやってはくれませんか。
おいおい、よしてくれよ。まるで俺が悪者みてえだぜ。それに、あんたらにいくら謝罪の言葉を聞かされても、俺の耳には届かない。そいつを、ベアトが自分の口で言えるってんなら、まあ、耳を貸さねえこともないぜ。
わかりました。それがあの子を再び認めてもらう唯一の条件ならば、あの子に謝罪をさせましょう。
No, that answers my other question.
ロノウへ。あの子を呼びなさい。よろしいですね、バトラ君。
好きにしろよ。だが、俺が許すと期待するな。呼べよ。あのムカつく魔女。
ありがとうございます、バトラ様。ただいま、お呼びいたします。お嬢様、バトラ様がお呼びでございます。
You back from timeout? After a few heartbeats, gold butterflies gathered together in midair and created Beato's form. It was a much more docile appearance than the one she's made before.
呼んだかロノウェ。
話は聞いていたはずですよ。あなたの口から何か言うことはありますか？
Well, we're waiting. It looked as though Beto shrunk slightly under Battler's cold gaze. Several times, Beto made an effort to get the words out of her mouth, but that didn't work so well. And she was just as awkward as someone trying to light a match during a freezing winter with icy hands. Even as she did that, the game board was advancing. Tick-tock. In the hall, they had just found the corpses of the new victims and had broken down crying. Ooh, and then there's this battler.
キリエさん。うわー。うわ
かりして。僕だって
You're the man now, George.
悔しい、悲しい。
おそらく即死だったでしょう。たとえ彼らが倒れた直後に我々がここに訪れたとしても、きっと手遅れだったに違いありません。
いいえ、違うわ。きっと生きてたわよ。胸にこんなものを刺されて、うちの人はもがき苦しみながら死んでいったに違いないのよ。
I'm sure he just got, like, killed instantly.
もっと早く来ていればきっと助かった。きっと助かったのよ。
バトラー君も辛いだろうけど、しっかり。
大丈夫だよ。大丈夫だぜ、兄貴。もうちょっとだけ泣かせてくれ。俺が一番マシなんだ。俺が一番悲しくないはずなんだ。だからもうちょっとだけ泣いたら大丈夫だから。
そんなことないよ。両親を失った心の痛みはよくわかる。僕には母さんがまだいる。バトラ君よりはるかにマシだ。
いや違うぜ。ジョージの兄貴が一番辛いはずなんだ。分かってんだよ、兄貴。ジョージの兄貴が俺たちの中で一番悲しくて辛いんだ。俺はそれを分かってる。だからこれ以上メソメソなんて泣いちゃいけねえんだ。うわ
Okay. And we return?
どうして僕の方が辛いなんて。
俺にとっちゃ親父もキリエさんも成人して独り立ちしたらいつかは別れる人間さ。親である以上子供より先に死ぬのは宿命だ。
It's the same for him.
それが少し早くなっちまっただけの話だぜ。だが兄貴は違うぜ。いつか別れる親だけじゃない。これからの人生をずっと一緒に生きていくはずのシノンちゃんまで失ったんじゃないかよ。 人の命に重さなんかねえさ。赤ん坊の命だって年寄りの命だって同じくらいに尊いだろうよ。だがよ、それからの人生が長ければ長いほど、一緒に築いてく未来が長ければ長いほど、その死ってのは悲しいものなんじゃねえのかよ。兄貴はシャノンちゃんと婚約したんだろ。これからの人生と家庭を一緒に築いていこうって約束したんだろ。その未来のでかさが、幸せのでかさがよ、俺の痛みなんかとは比べ物にならねえ。だから兄貴はもっともっと泣いても許されるはずなんだ。なのに俺たちいとこの兄貴格だからって無理に冷静を装ってやめてよ、バトラ君。
George was trying to make a calm smile. But already, he couldn't stop a single hot tear from leaving the streak down his face.
悲しくないわけがないじゃないか。僕はシャノンと一緒にたくさんの未来を思い描き合ったさ。きっと100年の人生では叶えきれないくらいの夢を語り合ったさ。その夢の一番最初の籍を入れることさえ叶えられなくて、悲しくないわけがないじゃないか。それに比べたら俺なんかだから俺にはこれ以上泣く資格なんかねえんだ。兄貴だってこらえてるのに俺にこれ以上の涙を流す資格なんて。同じだよ。親しい人を失えば悲しいのは僕もバトラ君も同じだよ。だからバトラ君が僕より涙を流してはいけないなんてルールはない。そして僕だってもうこれ以上涙をこらえなければならないなんてルールもないんだもんね。
I mean, it's normal.
兄貴未来を語り合ったシャノンが死んだ。父さんも死んだ。悲しいな、悲しいな。
As Madeline and George hugged each other tightly, they cried a wall full of tears over each other's shoulders for the people who had been so precious to them. So it continues.
どうして俺がジョージの兄貴が一番辛いって言ったかわかるか。
The hell is this? It's a new OC?
聞いていたからわかる。その後の人生を共にする時間の長さに悲しみは比例すると。
もちろんそれだけじゃ測れねえけどな。俺たち人間はお前ら魔女とは違う。生きてから死ぬまでという有限の時間、その力の限り生きている。それをないがしろにする奴は許せない。ましてや嘲笑いもてあそぶような奴は絶対に許せない。お前のような死の概念もめちゃくちゃな奴には理解もできねえだろうがよ。これから生きる時間の長さだけじゃない。一生懸命に生きている奴の人生を嘲笑うこと、これが一番俺には許せねえんだ。ジョージの兄貴はがむしゃらに頑張って人生を生きてた。シャノンちゃんと結婚するために悲壮な覚悟をしてこの日に臨んでいたはずなんだ。俺みたいに久しぶりにいとこと会えるなんて浮かれてたやつとはわけが違う。
しかしだな。
ベアト、今は黙って聞きなさい。
What's the line that Arsenal keeps saying? Oh, it's listen and learn. A battler is speaking. That's what I'm supposed to say. Listen and learn. A battler is speaking. That's what this is. Ba-na-na-na-na. Ba-na-na-na-na. Ba-na-na-na-na.
お前の言い分にも一定の理解はする。お前には自分の復活のためにおかしな碑文に沿った殺人を続ける必要があるってんだろ。だからその範囲内でのお前の殺人はお前の立場の事情を汲み取る限りギリギリの理解はできる。それがお前にとっては必要な行為だからだ。ならそれ以上の不要な行為は全てお前の無意味な残酷趣味ということになる。つまり第一の晩に6人を殺すことまでがお前にとっての必要な行為ならば、顔を砕くとか腹を裂いてお菓子を詰め込むなんて真似は全て全く不必要なお前の残酷趣味だってことになる。俺はお前のこの点について断じて許すことができないんだ。
Sticking to his guns.
お前はローザおばさんがひどい殺され方を繰り返された時、結局は最後には生き返らせるのだからみたいなことを言ったそうだな。
Oh, but that was new Beatrice, though. I'm pretty sure that was new Beatrice.
バルギリアに聞いてるぜ。
Wasn't it? The Eva Beatrice?
まあその
See?
最後には生き返るなら何度殺してもいいという考えは、命をもてあそぶだけの全く不必要な行為ではないのか。殺すなら人思いに殺せ。もてあそぶな。殺さないなら痛むな。お前は人の命を自在に操れるのをいいことに、命の尊厳を忘れてしまった。だから俺は認められないんだ。命の重みを、そして失った時の悲しみを知らない奴を俺は対戦相手だと断じて認められない。
無限の魔法が邪法と言われるゆえんです。
I was thinking it's a double-edged sword.
無限の魔女に有限の概念はない。壊す、殺すという有限と終焉の概念がないのです。それゆえに無限の魔女は時に生と死の狭間をゴム跳びで遊ぶかのように、その行き来を遊び出すようになります。それはとてもとても恐ろしいことです。だから私は無限の魔女として自ら望み、あなたの域まで達しなかったのです。
It was something originally had been trying to tell Beato for a long time. But Beato had been too young to obediently listen to these words. She'd been too wild. She'd been possessed by that detestable pleasure.
壺を割ってはならぬと言われてきた。でもだからこそいつか割ってみたいと思っていた。そして無限の魔法を得て、いくら壊しても好きなだけ元に直せると知ったとき、わらわは壺を壊すことがこれほどまでに楽しかったのかと。
I can understand it to like intent, or not to content, to a extent is what I was gonna say. I can understand it for an extent. If you suddenly get like a new power, and especially it's one that just like reverts anything that you want, kind of like a time travel in a way, then like I can understand if it stayed at like a vase or like a toy, something that's like either inanimate or just kind of like a commonplace object as item. But when you cross that line and you start doing that with human lives, yeah, no, I think he's like entirely justified in the way he feels. You keep that shit to like objects and items. Just don't do it with people.
それを禁忌の蜜と呼びます。人はその中身に惹かれるのではない。それを封ずる錠前に惹かれるのです。
They want the pot, not the honey. Huh.
実に嘆かわしいことです。
バルギリアに聞きたい。無限の魔法なんてものがどうしてあるんだ。
That's a good question. Why do you just exist?
それは何のためにこの世にあるんだ。
無限の魔法に限らず、魔法はすべて人の世に幸福をもたらすために存在するのです。 今さらバトラ君には信じがたいでしょうが、私たち魔女は人の世に恵みを与えるために、人と人ならざる者たちとの架け橋になるべく修行を重ねているのです。
死者を繰り返し蘇らせ、何度もいじめ殺すことでどう人の世に役立つってんだ。
大切な形見の壺が割れてしまった時、それを直すことで誰もが笑顔を取り戻すならば、私は何度でも魔法にて直すでしょう。しかしそれは壊すために直すのではありません。人に幸福を与えるために蘇らせるのです。
だとしたらベアト、お前は無限の魔女、失格だな。
Yeah.
今俺は漠然と思ったことがある。どうして俺がお前とこんなおかしなゲームを延々と続けてるのかな。これは俺を屈服させるためのゲームじゃない。お前が本当の意味で無限の魔女に認められるための試験ではないのかってな。
I never actually thought about it that way. I never saw the bigger picture of it. I'll be honest.
知らぬわ。わらわがそなたにゲームを申し込んでいるのは、単なる暇つぶしだ。誰の思惑でもないわ。
俺は今ワルギリアからの魔女の定義を聞いた。それによるならばベアト、お前は魔女ですらない。その修行の途中で自らの力を誤解した見習いってことになる。これは魔女と人間の戦いのはず。
Wait, okay, damn. We're going this far now?
ならば魔女でないお前に
Oh, but we're this
俺の
far.
としての資格はない。
Oh, but... Oh, bro, wait, hold on. No shot, dog. Oh
わかるな。
my god. Yikes.
わらわがまだ見習い風情だと申すか。
I can't believe she's taking this.
ならばわらわはいつそなたの対戦相手だと再び認められるのか。いつこのゲームを再開できるというのか。
Been doing this for like what, hundreds of years, right? Before they even showed up. And then is ready to throw in the towel when he shows up. Like, wait, what? You're letting him tell you how your life works?
さあな。
How can he do that? What is this?
それは少なくとも今じゃない。
It's fucked up.
お前が俺の言った話をちゃんと理解できて、本当の魔女になった時。
How can you even determine that? That's like a subjective definition.
俺はお前を再びゲームの対戦相手だと認めるだろうよ。
What the fuck are we gonna do?
そのような抽象的な言い方ではわからぬ。
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You gotta put definitions on that.
どうすればお前の許しを超えるのか、はっきりと聞かせよ。
いいや、これで十分だ。
Oh my fucking god.
あとはお前が考えろ。
He really said go think about it. Oh my god, this guy.
俺が言いたいのは以上だ。
Oh my god. Now what?
理解ができないなら、ワルギリアやロノウェに相談してみろ。
He badly got it, bro. He got it.
お前みたいなガキンチョは、まず大人の言葉に耳を傾けるところから始めやがれ。
He can just say that.
ワルギリア、ゲームは一度中断する。
Suspend the game for now? Wait, so hold on. Hold on, we really just done like that. What does this mean going forward? Like, okay, do the rest of them just live? The rest of the Ushiromias live until the boat comes? Like what? Or no, what is Eva Beatrice still gonna keep killing? Stop, hold on. I'm like, what the hell? I'm thinking about this. Like, what the hell? What do y'all mean, bro? Huh.
ロノウェが代行を降りた以上、あとはベアトが対局者としてふさわしい資格を持つのを待つしかない。
And nobody knows how long that's going to be because you won't put any fucking definitions on it. So like, so what now? What now?
了解しました。ベアトがその資格を得たと認められるまで、ゲームを対局者不在のまま進行させます。
You'll proceed without an opponent?
ベアトもそれでよろしいですね。
Oh, she finally gets a word in all of this now? Really? How nice of you all.
異論はない。
Alright, well shit.
わらわは時間とゆっくり考えられる場所が欲しい。これにて席を外してもよいか。
ああ、いいぜ。
それではまたの。
180, bro.
待てよ。そうしょぼくれた顔すんな。
What?
それはすまぬな。
What does it mean? You just destroyed her entire fucking existence as a witch.
わらわは胸の内がすべて顔に出る勝負。偽れぬ。
ならまだ構成の余地はあるってことだぜ。一つだけ約束する。俺はお前とのゲームに勝つかもしれないし負けるかもしれない。お前が戻ってこなけりゃ不戦勝ってこともあるだろうよ。
At that point, Battler stopped talking for a second. Then he spoke forcefully.
しかし絶対に俺からは降りない。お前を不戦勝にだけは絶対にしない。お前が再び俺の好敵手としてそこに座るのを俺はずっとここで待っているぞ。
バトラ様。
ありがとうなバトラー。わらわはきっとそなたに認められて戻ってくるぞ。
After showing a hopeful smile for a very short while, Beto vanished. After seeing her expression as she left, Battler was absolutely convinced that her face could tell no lies. Okay, so does this mean that we're actually just done with, we're done with tea time? And that little kind of purgatory section for now? Section just GG's? I mean, if she's not playing the game, there's no point. What's the point? 7 survivors returned to the guest house once again. By now, it was clear that those who went outside would not return alive. Rudolph's group had gone out with 2 guns and a master key, but those had been lost. It was already clear that those had been stolen by the culprit. Because the shutters were closed on the windows, they couldn't be opened even if the culprit had a master key. The front and back doors that led to the outside were all sealed by chains. And they were further blocked with sofas and tables. Even if the culprit decided to break in through violent means, it wouldn't be easy for them.
台風が今となってはむしろ幸いかもしれんな。
If they're outside, sure.
もしも晴れていたならゲストハウスに放火するという手もあり得たかもしれん。
Oh. Huh? Think about that. Okay.
そもそも台風でなかったなら午前中に船が来てたわ。それも不幸中の幸いと言えるかは微妙ね。
エヴァさん、体の具合はいかがですか？無理をされないようにしてください。
Be easy.
熱はまだ感じるけど、そんなことを言ってる場合じゃない。子供のためにも今は寝込んでる場合じゃない。
Crying so much in front of Hideyoshi's corpse. Eva had felt a strong self-awareness of her position as a mother, and her expression conveyed a strong will. In actual fact, her fever still hadn't gone down. She was aware of it. If she didn't keep a strong hold on herself, she felt as though the fever would make her mind hazy again. Now, by this point, the first floor formed a final line of defense set up by Kraus, Natsui, and Eva. The children and the guest, Nanjo, have been strongly warned not to go downstairs without taking great care. If the culprit used a ladder or something, it probably wouldn't be impossible for them to attack on the second floor. It wouldn't be easy for them to break those sturdy shutters from such an insecure position. The second floor was relatively safe compared to the first. Battler and George had also wanted to remain on the first floor so that they could fight if the worst hadn't happened. But Eva put a stop to that. In her mind, George was now the only member of her family. It seemed that she didn't even want to expose him to the danger of coming downstairs to the first floor. Kraus and Natsu could understand that feeling. Boom. Boom. Also, a great deal of time had passed since the siege began. In the second floor, cousin's room, Battler, George, and Jessica sat dazed. They didn't even listen to the TV that had been left on. For a while, Nacho had been with them and had tried to lend them words of encouragement. But when he realized that he might actually be having the opposite effect, he hid himself in his own room on the same second floor. George kept looking dazedly at the photographs inserted in his notebook. It was from the time he had taken a vacation to Okinawa with Shannon. Shannon's happy smile was contained in those photos. Trip through memory lane? Memory lane? Okay. George could remember the temperature and the humidity, the warmth and the strength of the wind. And even when he had been talking about with her at the time, those photos had been taken as clearly as though it had been yesterday. So George, they weren't simply photos, but a door to bring back warm memories. In this room, even though the sound of the typhoon and the TV should have entered George's hearing, it was the scenery of Okinawa that he had seen with her, and her laughing voice that reached his eyes and his ears. George had strived to be reborn after meeting Shannon. He had sworn to separate himself from the timid person he had once been. Easily caught up with the atmosphere, unable to refuse a request. And easily used by those around him. He resolved himself to become a strong man who could make her life more joyous. Therefore, if he hadn't met Shannon, the man called Ushiromi George would probably have lived a very different life. And the George of that different life surely wouldn't have been as excellent a man as he is now. The person I am now exists for Shannon's sake. Now that Shannon is gone, why exist? Completely meaningless, isn't it? He felt a deep, deep sadness as though he himself had become empty. That feeling must have been tormenting him this whole time. However, until Battler mentioned it, he hadn't been aware of feeling himself. He finally managed to remember that it should have been all right for him to cry much, much more. So he cried, just like Battler had, cried himself dry. By now his eyes were bright red and swollen, he couldn't cry anymore. So George did his best to change his way of thinking. He was not meaningless now, and should be grateful to Shannon for giving him such a character. The dead don't come back to life. He would have to get over being separated from his most beloved person. If he were to chase after Shannon and kill himself, she would surely be deeply dejected. It works the other way around too. If he had died, and Shannon didn't chase after him, throwing away her own life, he wouldn't have been able to forgive himself. So, He chose to surpass his sadness and anger, and decided to thank her instead. After meeting Shannon, she made his days rich and full, and taught him the meaning of working hard for other people's sake. As a result, she had shaped him into the kind of person he had wanted to be. He wanted to thank her for that. He tried to quell his sadness in this way. Each time he did, he remembered Shannon's smile. He understood it logically. He knew that grieving any more than this would only make her grieve in heaven. But that didn't bring a stop to his sadness. My two favorites.
なんで人が死ぬってのはよ、こんなに悲しいんだろうな。
Death is bad. Adler muttered. It was as though he was speaking on behalf of all humans. This question probably hadn't been directed at anyone, but Jessica answered.
別れはどんな形でもいつも悲しいさ。でもそれが例えば老いであるとか何かの時間であるとか、あらかじめ約束されていていつか訪れる別れであると分かっているものは、その悲しみを長い時間をかけてあらかじめ薄めておくことができる。それを許されないから突然の不幸は悲しいんだろうよ。
なるほどな。そりゃ病気にでもかかって何年も昏睡状態になってりゃ少しずつ心の整理もついてくだろうけど、ある日突然じゃその暇もねえもんな。
本来なら数年をかけて薄めるべき悲しみが一度に押し寄せる。そりゃ辛いわけさ。時には人の生涯に傷を残すほど深い悲しみを与えることもあるかもしれない。
生涯に傷を残すほどか。
I hate this theme.
小さなオカルト趣味もさ。
I hate this theme so much. This is the only one that gets me.
そうささやかれてたんだよな。例のベアトリーチェって愛人を大昔に亡くして、それが悲しくて悲しくて立ち直れなくて、
それで死者を蘇らせるためのオカルトの研究に残りの人生を全て捧げるようになったのではないかって。そうささやかれてた。
だとしたらじいさまは最後の土壇場でその奇跡を成し遂げたな。犯人は蘇ったベアトリーチェで、じいさまは殺される瞬間に再会できたってことになるぜ。自分で蘇らせてそれに殺されるとは皮肉な話さ。
それでもおじいさまは会えたんだろうね。人生の半分を落としてもう一度会いたいと願った女性に、わずかなひとときとはいえ再会できたんだろうね。
丸焼きにされちまったけどな。人生の半分をかけた研究にしてはちょいと割の合わない成果だろうぜ。
そんなことはないよ。たとえほんのひとときであったとしても、愛した女性に再会できたおじいさまは幸せだったはずさ。仮に生命の摂理に逆らった罪を神に咎められて、その身を焼かれ地獄に落とされたとしても、その見返りの再会がほんのわずかな時間だったとしてもね。
上司兄さん、
神の怒りに触れてこの身を焼かれようとも構わない。わずかな時間でもいいからシャノンを再び蘇らせてくれるなら、僕は残りの人生すべてをおじいさまと同じ研究に捧げるよ。
It'd take a long time.
5分でいいからシャノンともう一度言葉を交わしたい。1分でもいいから。それと引き換えに全ての人生を捧げても僕は構わない。
兄貴。
The battler and Jessica realized that their pointless discussion was causing George pain. They could do nothing more than shut their mouths. George directed his thoughts to Kenzo's life. He sacrificed half his life to research that no one would understood. And on the last day of his life, he revived the person he loved most, and probably succeeded in his reunion in his final moments. George didn't know how much time they'd had together. He didn't know they'd been given an hour or just 5 minutes. However, that moment must have been enough to reward him for all the months of research. Even though he spent dozens of years to achieve it, that small amount of time was probably more than worth it to him. Till today, I never believed in the occult or magic or anything. Somewhere in my heart, I even made fun of Grandfather's research, thinking of it as nothing more than a pastime. However, I won't make fun of it anymore. No, to the contrary, I believe strongly that it's real. The non-game version of that will acknowledge it. If the power of belief can create miracles, I'll probably throw away all of my studies up until today, spending the rest of my life from today onwards studying magic. Give me the power of magic, and give me a miracle that'll let me see Shannon again.
ごめんよみんな。僕もどうかしてる。魔法で死者が蘇るくらいだったら、世界中の人々が魔法を学ぶだろうね。でも現実にはそんなことはない。誰も学ばない。死者が魔法では蘇らないって知っているから。ごめんよ、妙なことを言い出して。僕のせいでおかしな空気になっちゃったね。みんなだって辛いだろうに。気を使わせてごめん。
Even if I did it to divert myself from my sadness, maybe I did say something strange. If I keep talking to myself about stuff that's so weird, I'm sure it won't do anything good for their sadness. But that doesn't mean I can't bear this silence.
僕は下に行ってもう一杯コーヒーをもらってくる。
Dude, I could use some coffee right now too. I'm not gonna lie. I could probably use some coffee myself right now. I do that. I was gonna wait until like maybe after stream, but I don't know. I might do it early.
うちの母さん、コーヒーの入れ方にはこだわりがあるんだよ。
Bum, 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 bum.
みんなもおかわりはいるかい？
Adela-kun and Jessica-chan lightly shook their heads. Without pressing them any further, I took my mug and left the room. Yeah, give me some too, George. I could definitely use it, bro. God damn. The shutters were all closed in the hallway, so the corridor was very dim. Tried visiting Dr. Nanjo's room and asking if he wanted more coffee. But he said he didn't need any either. It seems my mother's orthodox method of making coffee isn't universally appreciated. One time, I made some for Shannon, but she told me that while it was delicious, it was a little strong.
Shannon.
That's no good. Even though I left the room to change my mind, or change my mood, that image of Shannon's face filling my head hasn't faded in the slightest. I keep seeing those fun days with her, more and more vividly. And it's saddening that I never even got a chance to see her dead face. According to her parents, she was apparently killed with something like a gun or a spear. I'm trying to think. How did Shannon go out this time? What the hell was it? Damn, she was so long ago, I can't remember. Oh well. I'm sure they were just trying to console me, but they had said her dead face had been very beautiful and peaceful. I wonder if she had the engagement ring I gave her last night on her finger. She accepted my engagement. She should have had it on the ring finger on her left hand. Last night, we were both on the edge of losing it, but not calm at all. Finn accepted my engagement courageously. But she might have regretted that as a rash action when she had cooled her head. She might have taken the ring off. I wonder if she has the ring on now. I want to be sure of at least that much. I want to know how she felt at the very end. But, even if I do confirm that, it doesn't mean she'll come back. What happened to her body? Probably decay? After the autopsy, it will probably be immediately cremated. Crematorium. Then I'll never be able to see her face, even her dead face, for all eternity.
僕はシャノンを失ったショックで少しおかしくなってるのかな。
I don't want body to be burnt. If she's burned and turned to ash, never again will it be possible for her to revive. They say cremation is frowned upon in Western tradition. Because on the day of resurrection, there would be no body to revive. Because of that, it seems that great criminals in Western history were often cremated after execution as a punishment. And their ashes were sometimes scattered into rivers and such. In other words, to Western people, death is nothing more than sleep until resurrection. It is essential that the corpse is left after death.
つまりそれは西洋人は死者がよみがえる奇跡の存在を知っていたからなんだ。でも日本にはその奇跡がなかったから焼いてしまうんだ。
Now I understand. I understand my grandfather idolized the Western occult. That was his only reason from the very beginning. Just to revive the person dear to him. Grandfather spent the rest of his remaining life researching the Western occult. Situations surrounding us now is abnormal. Grandfather did revive his beloved Beatrice. And that Beatrice carried out a terrible serial murder. With linked closed rooms that force us to conclude that magic was used. The Golden Witch, Beatrice, the incarnation of miracle of the Western occult, and also the culprit who killed Shannon. She's an entity I should hate, and yet for some reason, I want to cling to her. I wonder if Shannon could be revived with the magic of miracles, which Grandfather bet his life on. According to the legend of the Ushiromiya family, Grandfather met with her long ago and was given a vast quantity of gold. Yes, the story we've heard 1,000 times now. Then if I also met with her, instead of gold, would she give me Shannon's life? As collateral, I don't care what kind of sort of devil's contract she imposed. I wouldn't mind sacrificing all of my remaining life. George probably couldn't believe or realize that his voiceless witch was heard by the witch herself, who stood right behind him. Oh. Beatrice had been listening to that entire discussion between the children just now in the cousins' room. Heather told her that she didn't know the value of a human's life. And wanting to understand that in her own way, she had stealthily visited, listening in on their discussion. That's a smart way to start. Okay. She's learning. So now I'm wondering, I still don't know how much of this episode is left, though.
Soれが願いだというのか。それを叶えれば、わらわは魔女だと認められるのか。
Beato looked at the palms of both of her hands. She had handed over most of her once searching magical power, when the new witch succeeded with the name of the Endless Witch. Of course, her current power still made her worthy of being called a witch, but it could not begin to compare to her previous strength.
無限の魔法などなくとも、わらわは1000年に名を轟かす大魔女であるぞ。
And then you turned all 1,000 of those years down the gutter when one battler comes along.
死者を蘇らすなど、造作もないことよ。
Sting? Now, even magic that should have been easy in the past would be difficult with her current power. She thought of something, then clicked her tongue, then did so over and over again. In the end, she finally thought of a single spell. That was a spell that she couldn't use by herself. It was a spell that witches with weak power used, one that relied on the aid of others. In the past, Beato looked down upon that type of magic. Therefore, she frantically tried to search for any conceivable alternative. But in the end, she couldn't think of one and slumped over in self-derision. Then, careful not to surprise him, she softly called out. Softly, to George's heart. Oh.
後ろ宮ジョージ。
Okay. That was probably one of the worst times. I didn't know what was going to happen. That was like probably could have been one of the worst times to have like an ad break there. But all right, not that bad. Not that bad. It only stopped right here.
わらわの声が聞こえる。
聞こえるとも。あなたは誰だい？本当に魔女のベアトリーチェ？それとも僕の悲しみが生んだ幻想なのか？もしも前者だったなら僕の願いを聞いてほしい。そして後者なら僕をそっとしておいてほしい。
Their conversation in a mental world was a lot like having a one in a dream. When you dream, haven't you ever had the experience casually accepting something that would have been absurd in the real world? Conversation in this world was like that. So even though a witch appeared and started talking to George, he was not surprised.
わらわが黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェである。本来わらわとそなたこうして会話を交わすことなどできぬ。しかしそなたがわらわのことを強く意識し会話を望むからこうして互いのチャンネルを合わせることができる。
シャノンを殺したのがあなたなのか、あなたを名乗る何者かの仕業なのか、僕はどうでもいい。ただあなたが本当の魔女として存在しているならば、どんな対価にも応じる。僕の命を望むなら今すぐに捧げてもいい。
Well, now there, cowboy. Let's hear the terms first.
どうかシャノンを生き返らせてほしい。
Let's read the terms and conditions for the first time.
それが無理ならせめてわずかの間話をさせてくれるだけでもいい。お願いだ。
対価はいらぬ。その願い
It's your lucky day.
叶えて使わそう。
本当にシャノンを。
だが反言の魔法を扱うには今のわらわには魔力が足りぬ。だからそなたの手を借りねばならぬ。
僕にできることならどんなことでも。それが僕の心臓を今すぐこの場で取り出すことであったとしても僕は躊躇しない。
I like the enthusiasm, but let's reel it back just a little bit.
そんなものいらぬというの。わらわは魔法を唱えさすれば冥府の扉に隙間ができよう。だが今のわらわにはその隙間よりシャノンの魂を連れ出せるほどの力はない。しかしシャノンのことを強く思うそなたがその思いを魔力に変えて彼女の魂を必ずや連れ戻せるだろう。どうだ、わらわを手伝うか。
手伝うとも。シャノンの命が蘇るなら僕は何を失うことも恐れない。
And so be it. George's fist shook in silence. Then he slowly came to his senses. He had been absent-mindedly standing near the window in the hall that whole time, his mug still in his hand. And the witch from his dream was still there.
そんな夢じゃない。
That's right.
静かにせよ。今のわらわはとても脆い。この上さらに他の人間まで現れたら姿を保ちきれぬ。そなたの願いは叶えるから今は沈黙せよ。よいか。
George covered his mouth with both hands, nodding enthusiastically several times. In that instant, he almost dropped the mug he was holding. George frantically juggled it around and caught it. He was afraid that if it fell to the floor and made a loud sound, the witch's form might disappear like a bubble popping. Softly set the mug on the floor and stared at the witch in front of him again. Her form didn't disappear. It wasn't a dream.
さあ、シャノンが眠る客室へ行くぞ。そなたの思いの力にて彼女の魂を連れ戻す。
Hid in the parlor? I almost want to say that she died to one of the stakes, but I don't know.
行くってどうやって？
I just have to check the notes.
下には母さんたちがいる。表へ出るのを許してくれるわけがない。それにあなたはさっき他の人間が現れたら姿を保てないと言わなかったかい？
そういえばそうだったね。下にはクラウスたちがおった。それでは確かに下へ降りられぬな。
Okay, but what now?
ならば一階へ降りずに屋敷へ行けばいいではないか。簡単な話よ。
Beto laughed as though she had thought of a pleasant prank. And with her golden pipe, she lightly tapped a window with its shutter closed. While she did, 3 gold butterflies appeared from the pipe and opened the lock on the window as though melting it. Yeah. Then the window opened without a sound. The shutter beyond it was exactly the same. The clasp unset itself, also without making a sound, and it quietly opened. The window opened, exposing the wind and rain outside the mansion. Perhaps because of the direction or something related to the construction of the building, the wind did not blow inside. Because of that, for a while, George felt as though this entrance that opened to the outside was a dream or illusion, and he couldn't accept it as real.
さあ行くぞ。ついてまいる。
Just like that, Beto gently floated upwards. It was a natural action, like that of a diver enjoying an underwater stroll. It made it easy to believe that if you acted like she did, you too might be able to float in the sky, just as though you were swimming through water. No, George did believe that. So without thinking, just as she had done, he also, gently, as though swimming in the water, lifted his feet.
Oh. やるではないか。わらわが説明するよりも早く空を舞うことを覚えたか。
I mean, he just trusted. He trusted and believed. What can I say? George was shocked to find himself floating in midair like he was swimming. Of course, Beto was also shocked that George, who shouldn't have been able to use magic, had figured out how to do that just by instinct.
空が飛べるなんて、泳げるなんて。
理屈を考えてはならぬ。それが自然なことであると受け入れる。 ニュートンとかアインシュタインとか人間たちの競技を思い出してはならぬぞ。特に高き空を飛んでいる時は墜落する未熟な魔女も時におる。
That's horrible.
あるがままを受け入れる。あるがままを受け入れる。
George repeated those words over and over. He must not deny magic, no matter what. Denying that would be like throwing away what might be his first and last chance to revive Shan. However, compared to Beto, who was elegantly drifting like smoke, George's movements clearly resembled someone underwater. Therefore, if he didn't act like he was kicking his feet in water every once in a while, he'd be caught by the force of gravity, bit by bit.
わらわが初めて空を舞った時よりは上出来であると褒めておく。行くぞ。ついてまいる。
Beto beckoned to George. She gently flew into the stormy sky. It was just like a scene from a fairy tale. The scene unfolding before George's eyes felt entirely like an extension of his dream.
空を飛べるのはすごいけど、すごい風と雨だ。
なんだ、雨と風に苛まれるのか。それを防ぐ魔法を教えてもよいが、今のそなたには早いし、今はそれを習う時間を割くのも惜しかろう。
I think you'll be fine.
ええ。僕が必要としている魔法はそれじゃない。
George wore a strong-willed gaze, refusing to let the wind and rain get to him.
見えてきたぞ、屋敷だ。もう少し頑張れよ。今落ちればバラの茂みだぞ。
The undulating rose garden was spreading beneath the witch and George's gazes. This illusion-like scene no longer surprised George. Only the gradually approaching mansion was reflected in his eyes.
シャロン、待ってて。必ず君を蘇らせてみせる。
Oh well, well. I was just thinking it's been a while. That time, the cruel new witch could be seen staring at the guest house from a different location.
あと残すは第7、第8の番だけね。
Ah, still going.
あと2人で先代のババアの義理はおしまいだわ。クラウスと夏日を殺す。
Unfortunate.
夫婦仲良くね。にひ。標的はどうかに？
Welcome back, Schleisters.
ゲストハウス1階ロビーにて 標的2名と後ろ宮エヴァを捕捉。反魔法力測定。410へデータリンク。410データ受領。反魔法力は極めて小。
Not good for them.
エヴァさえ席を外せばまな板の上のマグロにアワビです。
What the hell is abalone? Have you ever heard of it?
いかがしますか、大ベアトリーチェ卿。ご命令をいただければすぐにも狙撃いたします。どうかご命令を。ほんとにあんたたちは便利な家具ね。死体をほじるしか能のない中古家具どもとは大違いだわ。ねえ。シエスタ姉妹、またあなたたちの手際を見せてちょうだい。攻撃準備よ。死体はまた運び出してね。たっぷり遊んであげるんだから。
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Naturally, I'm going to feel a little bit bad for it, but I don't know about Kraus. I don't know about Kraus.
文句はなしよ、ロノウェイ。
はい、かしこまりました。
Oh. At that moment, the witch noticed something. It was as though some presence had disappeared. Was it her imagination?
今、何か気配を感じなかった？誰か感じた人いる？申し訳ありません。私は何も気づきませんでした。お許しを。私たちゲストハウスを観測中でしたから周辺監視はオフにしてます。にひ。ルシファーちゃんは何か気配感じた
For just an instant, Lucifer glanced at Rono, asking whether she should answer honestly or not. Rono gave a small nod in response.
いいえ、申し訳ございません、ベアトリーチェ様。私たちは何も。中古家具ゆえ、愚鈍なことをお許しください。
そう。大悪魔のあなたがそう言うなら、きっと私の気のせいなんでしょうね。
Sure. The witch persistently stared in the direction that the presence had disappeared to. That was where the rose garden lay. And beyond that, she could see the mansion's dark silhouette fading by lightning. It took quite some time before she pushed her unsatisfied feelings aside and once again faced the guest house. Wonder what it was. The guest house lobby was wrapped in silence. Strings of tension binding Kraus, Natsui, and Eva had already loosened, and they were completely worn out, their minds beginning to waver. Every once in a while, they would stand up and walk around pointlessly, as though fighting their drowsiness.
大丈夫ですか、エヴァさん。 やはり無理をせず休んでいてください。
大丈夫だって言ってるわ。もう大人は私たち3人しかいないのよ。休んでる暇なんかないわ。石にかじりついてでもここを死守するわよ。
She spoke bravely, but she couldn't hide her rough breathing. It seemed like the fever, which had been calmed with medicine for a short time, had returned. It was very obvious that Eva's health was not good.
無理はするな。せめて目を閉じていたまえ。もし起こさねばならぬ時は必ず起こしてやるから。
だから平気だって言ってるわ。放っておいて。
It seemed she was already unwilling to budge. Perhaps and naturally realized that even though if they talked to her anymore when she was like this, it wouldn't reach her ears. So without saying it anymore, they decided to let her be. To Eva right now, even having an argument like that would be burdensome. It would probably be better for her body if she just sat there with her mouth closed. You know, in truth, Eva was just a step away from being beaten down by drowsiness. Perhaps he shot back at them with a temper because she was trying to rouse herself and throw off her sleepiness. The clock would be pointing to 6 in the afternoon very soon. She had several snacks to distract herself from her drowsiness, so she didn't feel hungry. But now her lack of sleep made it feel like it was 6 in the morning, not the afternoon. Even supposing that the boat came at precisely 9 in the morning tomorrow, they still had one more than 12 full hours to go. It was an overwhelmingly long stretch of time. Long, painful, hot. Even though the sound of the clock torments my body now. Times like this, when that person puts his hand on my forehead, the fever fades at once. That person no longer exists. As Eva's mind grew foggy, she was once again gripped by a deep sadness. She had already cried herself dry. Even so, the sadness of losing her beloved husband had not been exhausted.
私は間違っていたんだわ。
どうして？
Oh, in her mind? The new witch and Eva were fundamentally the same being. If Eva talked to her, she would always respond.
私は後ろ宮家の当主の座さえ得られればそれで満足のはずだった。それがあの黄金の山を見た途端に欲が増えたの。あの黄金の山を独り占めしたい気持ちに駆られた。
それは恥じることでも何でもないわ。だって後ろ宮家の当主として当然の権利じゃない。他の誰にも黄金のひとかけらだって譲るものかってのよ。
私がその誘惑にとらわれたからあなたが生まれてしまったんだわ。あなたは私の少女時代の心であると同時に自分勝手でしかない私のよこしまな心でもあった。 そのあなたがあの黄金の山によって芽生えた私の愚かな欲望のせいで、私の胸という卵の殻を破り、この世に生まれ出てしまった。あなたを産んだのは私の責任。
なら私が殺したローザとマリアも、そしてルドルフとキリエと秀吉もあなたの責任ってことになるわ。
どうしてうちの人まで殺したのよ。どうして
Yeah, how do you explain to her that it's all part of like some big chess game?
秀吉を殺す気はなかったわ。だってうるさくてしつこかったんだもの。その意味では私たちの、いえ、あなたの責任ね。あんなのを旦那に選んだあなたの責任だわ。
あなたみたいな子供にあの人の良さはわからないわよ。あなた。
何よ。私たちは魔法で夢を叶えたのよ。碑文の謎を解いたわ。そして黄金を見つけ、当主の指輪を手にしたわ。すべての夢を叶えきったわ。それがなんで不満なの？
それだけが全ての夢なんかじゃないわ。あの人と素敵な人生を歩んで、ジョージに素晴らしい人生を託す。妻として、母として。私にはまだ叶えなければならない夢がたくさんあるのよ。それなのに、それなのに。
それはあなたが大人になってから勝手に増やした夢だわ。私たちの夢じゃない。
だからあなたは子供なのよ。自分さえ良ければいいの？
Oh, yes?
そうよ。すべて私が悪いのよ。あの時ローザの言うことにどうして私は反抗したの？どうして兄弟みんなに黄金を見つけたと発表できなかったの？すべて私が醜いから。黄金を独り占めしたくて芽生えさせたよこしまな心があなたを孵化させてしまった。
ひどい嫌われようだわ。私たちは二人で後ろ宮エヴァなのに。
いいえ、もう違うわ。そしてそれはあなたが言ったのよ。私は後ろ宮エヴァ。そしてあなたは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。だからもう消えて。魔女なんておとぎ話の中にしか存在できない妄想よ、幻想よ。あなたなんか消えてしまえ。 二度と私の前に現れないで。
ああ、そう。わかったわ。あなたの前から消えてあげるわ。
Was that easy?
そして私はもう後ろ宮エヴァじゃない。これからは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。もう好き勝手に遊んでやるんだから。あんたなんて知らないわ。へそでも噛んで勝手に死んじゃえば。
After having a very childlike tantrum, the witch who had once been another Eva vanished. Only Eva was left behind in the darkness. And she questioned herself.
私なの。私があの人を私が殺してしまったの。
She could no longer answer that question herself. Oh, yeah? And it took something away. Sorry. Wait. Throw that away. Turn on the AC. It seemed that, half asleep, she had gotten some saliva caught in her windpipe just as she was dozing off. Eva suddenly started coughing.
大丈夫かエヴァ。夏希、水を頼む。
はい。大丈夫だってば。ちょっとむせちゃっただけなんだから。
Eva pushed away Natsue's hand as she tried to rub her back, and unsteadily rose to her feet.
顔を洗ってくるわ。ごめんなさいね、寝ちゃってたわ。戻ってきたらまたコーヒーを入れるわね。特に濃い、明日の朝まで眠気が来なくなるようなやつを。
頼む。ゴーダの入れるコーヒーよりお前が入れるコーヒーの方が私の好みに合うからな。
Ooh, better than Goda.
お世辞でも嬉しいわ。すぐ戻るわ。
Eva exited the lobby, headed for the bathroom. Kraus and Natsui watched over her frail back.
あなたもあれだけ犬猿の中だったエヴァさんに気を使うこともあるのですね。
本来兄とはこういうものではないのか
ええ、 それで正しいと思います。
エヴァに限らん。ルドルフにもローザにも。私がした兄らしいことといえば、それを王兵に語り、彼らをいじめただけだ。父のようになりたくて、私なりに必死だった。だが、いつもそれは及ばず、そのはけ口を彼らに向けてしまった。しかし、それは言い訳にならん。エヴァにも、まだ傷が癒えぬほどに、深い心の傷を負わせてしまっただろう。悔いているが、今さらそれを詫びたところで、その傷が癒えるわけもない。
あなたがその気持ちを今だけでなく持ち続けることで、その気持ちはきっと他の兄弟たちにも伝わりますよ。
今となっては他の兄弟もエヴァを残すのみだがね。
もしあなたとあなたのご兄弟が生まれた家が後宮家でさえなかったなら、もっともっと普通な楽しい兄弟の関係であったでしょうに。
それを言ってはならん。エヴァは生涯私を憎み続けるだろう。そしてその資格がある。私はそれを甘んじて受け止めるつもりだ。
あなた、
エヴァ、すまん。もちろん許さなくていい。
もちろん許さないわ。何を今さら。
Oh, that's right, they're next. Oh. Oh, right, they're next. Oh.
悪いと思ったなら今すぐへそでも噛んで死んじゃえば。
Well, shit.
やっちゃえ、シエスタ島。
Nice knowing you.
45、射撃とか治療。 射撃曲線再確認。飛行誤差修正。410データリンク。410データ受領。射撃許可確認。にひひひひ。射撃。
Together, the sisters released the magical bowstring they had ready. A beautiful tail trailed behind the gold arrow, and it drew a lovely curve as it flew. It was just like a golden snake. It skillfully avoided a grove of trees and flew towards the front door of the guest house. Then it flew into the keyhole of the door and snuck into the guest house without any problem at all. The gold snake raced down the hall smoothly, yet as fast as an arrow. Right before it was the door to the lobby. When it flew into the keyhole, Kraus and Natsuhi were already... For an instant, Kraus thought he saw a gold-colored sparkle in the keyhole on the door. However, at the same time as he strained his eyes to see what it was, that sparkle bent like a whip and attacked, wrapping itself around Kraus's neck. Oh, like that? Okay. Just looking at it, Gold Snake seemed very simple. However, it was as though a wire had tightened around Kraus's neck. While that snake choked Kraus, it extended even more and also tightened around Natsu's neck. Without even a chance to scream, their eyes bulged as they went into convulsions and then collapsed.
45命中および死亡確認。
How the fuck do you defend against that? It's flying through keyholes and whatnot. Like, it doesn't open a door, it doesn't go through a window, it's just like a golden beam, like a snake. Fits in and goes through anywhere. And it's heat-seeking. Like, I don't know how the hell you defend against that. Shit, maybe you just don't.
牽引曲線形成。補正点修正。410へデータリンク。410データ受領。死体牽引開始。
Corpse towing.
2匹も釣れたに2匹。
Well, shit. The ghost snake began to drag Kraus and Natsui's bodies back. It slipped through the door into the corridor, dragging the bodies, gradually increasing in speed. Rapidly pulled them outside the guest house. So, the lobby was silent, as though nothing had happened. As though Kraus and Natsui had not been in there since the beginning. Only the sound of the wind and the rain remained, as if they were playing dumb, pretending to only be the ones there.
ごめんなさい。もう大丈夫よ。今コーヒーを入れるわね。
Where did everybody go? Eva returned from the bathroom, but no one was in the lobby. Even though they had supposedly been in that sofa until the moment she had choked and gone to the bathroom, they were gone, as if there had been an illusion from the very beginning.
不用心ね。二人揃ってどこに行っちゃったの？
Eva put her hand on the sofa as though acting out a scene to from a detective novel. She felt a warmth that meant that she'd been sitting there until a short while ago. Maybe went to do rounds or something. For the time being, Eva sat down and waited for their return. Oh, right, and then the Shannon Revive party reading. Beito and George can be seen in the parlor of the mansion. George is kneeling near Shannon's body as they're praying. His face was serious, and there was even sweat on his forehead. However, Beito was the same. Now she had handed her name, most of the previous power had been lost. Of course, she still had more than enough power to be called a witch. Compared to the past, it was a very faint thing.
いいぞ。声をかけるな。手で触れるな。心の声で呼べ。心の手で求め。そなたの強き思いだけ。シャノンの失われた魂。わらわの魔法を届かせ。
George kept praying earnestly and silently. He kept frantically yelling inside his heart, trying to call back the soul of the person he loved. He strongly envisioned his soul leaving his body and searching for her as she wandered through the land of the dead. Beato turned that strong force into magical power that supplemented her own magic. This was magic that, in the past, she could have performed easily without anyone's help. But now, she didn't rely on someone else's assistance, she wouldn't be able to finish this chant, much less succeed.
数百年近く忘れておった魔法と反言とこんなにも辛い魔法であったか
Beato was wearing an even more strained expression than George. It slipped her mind, but originally the magic's revival life was the ultimate hidden art. The abnormal thing was her previous magical power, which could be used over and over with the snap of her fingers. So the heavy burden on her body and mind was, fundamentally speaking, extremely natural.
しかしこやつめの力魔法を知らぬというのはかなりのものなるさすがは金蔵の孫といったところ
Strong energy pouring from George was large enough to act as a magical powder. At first, Beato thought it must be a blood kinzo, sorcerer. However, that probably wasn't it. He had a feeling that Battler had already told her what it was. It had been born from the power of George's sadness at the death of the person he loved, from the way he had tried his hardest throughout his life. From the warm time he spent together with Shannon, to the size of the dream they swore to protect in the future. Is it really possible for humans to take life so seriously, even though they only have a single one? You know, it was only natural. To her, a life didn't mean anything more than the difference between the top and bottom of an Othello piece. If the black represented death, then she thought all you had to do was flip it over again and make it white. However, it was just like that broken vase. To humans in a world without magic, but they cannot return things to their original form, it is very, very natural for them to bet their life and soul.
生死すら自在にする無限の魔女死の山さえ越えられぬ有限の人間に劣ることもあるというか
This time the witch acknowledged it. He was able to hold a magical power that could never reside in witches who didn't understand the value of life. Why does this thing called the Endless Magic exist? Even though I call myself the Endless Witch, did I forget what the Endless Magic means for 1,000 years? She looked at George's expression again. His surging earnestness was like a lightning bolt. Right now, even though George's body had been burned or smashed by a waterfall, he would probably continue to pray for his beloved, without minding, without noticing. For the first time, she showed respect for that power. So in that instant, All magical resistance was lost, and the enormous power of George's feelings turned into magical energy in its complete form. Oh, this is the first mansion, the one that's in the forest. The base was very beautiful, rich with history and value. Even as young as I was, it still forced me to take a deep breath when I witnessed its beauty. But that just made me want to touch it. But the vase easily fell and smashed to pieces, like a bubble that had to be popped. It felt as though the time it possessed a form had just been an illusion. Lives are just that fragile, just that easily lost. I realized that my foolish curiosity had led to something that couldn't be undone. No matter how much I regretted it, no matter how much I apologized, smashed vase wouldn't return back to its original form. Lost life will not return to normal no matter what happens. I was frightened that, even though my actions had been thoughtless and careless, it had stolen away a life that could never be revived again. Then, I pitied that lost life and cried. I was frightened of myself. The one responsible for its loss cried even more. I'm sure grandfather will also cry at the loss of his precious face. I'm sorry that all the people who love grandfather and see him like that would cry. With the loss of a single life, the whole world can be filled with so much more sadness. I cried even more about how terrible it was. Beatrice appeared and spoke.
ならばお嬢様、この壺を魔法で蘇らせましょう。それで皆が幸せになれるなら、壺も魔法も精霊たちも喜んでそのために力を貸し、元の姿を取り戻すでしょう。さあさあ、お嬢様、目を閉じて私と一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。
さあさあ、目を閉じてごらんなさい。そして思い出してごらんなさい。あなたがどんな姿をしていたのか。それはきっととてもとても美しい姿。どうか私にあの姿をもう一度見せておくれ。
I forget what time it is. Damn. Is it 8 already? Okay. I'm not sure what this current part's going to be. Let me save here. Before I forget. Damn it. I'm still gonna make dinner. Okay. That's decent prod. That's good stuff. And then we'll come back and we will see how opening up to the Land of the Dead unfolds. See if we'll get Shannon back. That's good stuff for now. Alrighty. That's gonna cut it for this one. And then I'll be back with it next Thursday. I'm gonna try to put Umineko like kind of back on schedule more often, like just as a regular thing. So it'll be back next week. GG's for now.